Okay, so today, before I get into my speed runs, I'm going to talk about these things. Super NES controllers. As you may be aware, they are old, which means sometimes they need cleaning and or fixing. So I just wanted to talk about it because I get questions about it periodically on stream or in Discord or whatever. And I already have a video on my YouTube of doing this, but it's old. I have better equipment now, better microphone. This camera that I'm pointing at is the same, so it's not really any better. But this one is better, but it also is not on autofocus, so I can't like hold stuff up close. It doesn't autofocus, unfortunately. But yeah, okay, so that is why I am doing this. Sorry, I haven't rehearsed this, so my apologies if it seems like disjointed and weird. I do have notes on what to talk about, kind of in what order, but I haven't rehearsed this. So my next note is to explain that different controllers are different. Imagine that. What I mean by this is that there are a lot of things that go into how a controller is built, obviously. And different controllers are different in the sense that they were manufactured at different times and also in different places. And even something like the shell of a controller, so like the main body of a controller, can really impact how the buttons work and feel. So that is something to keep in mind, is that maybe you spend all this time trying to get a controller to work properly and it just won't. Sometimes it might be worth just using a different controller. Quick shout out to 40 Watt Range. He used to build controllers for people and do repairs and stuff. He used to tune them, is what he calls it. And he gave me some tips a while ago on things that have helped. But one of the things that he mentioned was sometimes a shell is just bad. Sometimes it's just bad and there's nothing you can do to fix it. So keep that in mind. At the end of the day, it may be worth trying just a different controller. That's it. Okay, so parts. So if you're going to be cleaning and or fixing one of these controllers, obviously you need the controller. You need a small Phillips head screwdriver. I just have, this case is kind of dirty, but I just have a set of six screwdrivers. 2 of them are Phillips. I use the bigger Phillips, but you want a small one. Small Phillips head screwdriver. This was before Nintendo started using their like tri-wing screws or whatever. So you have the controller, you have your screwdriver. You need it's on the stream, but you need isopropyl or rubbing alcohol. A higher percentage is better. So I have that right here. You need Q-tips or cotton swabs. I forgot to grab mine. Luckily, they're in reach. So you can buy a pack of like a bunch, right? So I'm just gonna grab a few. There we go. Okay. And you probably will need replacement controller parts. That's not always the case, but parts do wear out, and over time you may need replacement parts. So I have a note here. OEM is good. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. The original parts that went into building these controllers are really good. The downside is that they're limited. They don't make them anymore. So if you want to use OEM parts, that's good and fine. There are ways to get new or like new controllers. But just be aware that eventually those parts will not be available anymore. Who knows whether that's in a year or 10 years, or I don't know. There's no way to know. That is why I personally have never become dependent on OEM D-pads because I was afraid that, eventually I wouldn't be able to play the game properly anymore if I became dependent on the D-pads. So, what was I saying? Parts. Okay, so it's fine if you want to use OEM parts, but eventually they will be gone. So just be aware of that. I use Top Gear Japan parts. Not for all my parts, but they are the vendor that I recommend getting parts from if you're going to get aftermarket parts. Keep in mind, lots of aftermarket stuff sucks. I've tried stuff from many different sites. I'm not going to name any because I don't want to disparage any, but I've tried a bunch of different LR buttons. I've tried a bunch of different D-pads, and you always run into an issue with either the consistency of the button press going through, or on the D-pad, you might run into an issue where you can press like opposing directions at the same time. So like if you press in the middle of the D-pad, like this, for example, press in the middle, see how if you look at the input display in the top left, only down is being pressed, only right is being pressed, only up is being pressed. Like I'm pressing in the middle and I can't get it to do opposing directions. Okay. And that's what you want. You don't want it to be able to do opposing directions. But some parts will allow that, and that actually makes it really hard to play. And it's also illegal on the leaderboards for Super Metroid speedrunning, at least. So keep that in mind. Okay, so Top Gear Japan. I'm going to put some links in chat, and then I will also put them in the video description on YouTube. So here is their main page. And then we also, I have links to specific buttons. So these are the LR buttons. And these are the D-pads. And these are the ABXYs. And apparently they do start and select too, which I didn't even know that, but they do. So now I'm going to mention, what the heck, Zeni? These are for 100 parts. I don't need 100 of these. You're right. You probably don't. If you message the seller, I have heard, I've not done this myself, but I have heard that they will work with you on sending different amounts. So if you just want like 10 of each, you could work with them on that. The shipping is a bit pricey because they're coming from Japan. But again, this is the only vendor that I've found that makes parts that are consistently very, very good. So my old tutorial mentioned Japan Spell makes some good parts. And they did/do. They had two different types of rubbers. Long story short, they stopped making some of them, and the ones that they still make are not good for the D-pads. And I can't really comment on the ABXY because I haven't used them. But yeah, okay. So that's the Top Gear Japan parts. Samus Demo. Okay, so I'm going to show you something. And this kind of goes along with why am I doing this? You can press just a direction. This is a big long room. You can press just left, just right, just up, just down, right? That seems basic, makes sense, whatever. You can also push angles, okay? So if you push up and left, you'll see that Samus aims up while walking left. If you push up and right, she aims up while walking right. If you push down and right, she aims down while walking right. And if you push down and left, she aims down while walking left, right? That also seems basic, but here's why it's important. In Super Metroid, you want to be able to manipulate the D-pad to do angles when you want them to happen, and you absolutely do not want them to happen when you are not trying to manipulate angles. I do this. I can. Okay. We're going to get rid of that filter. 1 sec. Okay. So, yeah, like arm pumping, for example. But also with something like if you have a spike suit or just a shine spark. What is that under? Is it under miscellaneous? Okay, so, you know, let's give ourselves a flash suit. Say that you're going left, right? And you jump, and then your D-pad decides to push up while you're holding left. It's going to activate your shine spark. And maybe you didn't want to use your shine spark then. Maybe you wanted to use it in a different spot. Well, no, you can't because rip, right? So that's why this is important. Okay. So keeping that in mind, one of the things that I do to test a D-pad and whether it's good or not is I'll stutter, right? So if you look at the top left of the screen, I'm pushing right repeatedly, right? And only right is registering. Right. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on left. Okay. You saw an up input there. But for the most part, this is what we want to see, just left inputs. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to switch controllers. And I'm going to explain now, this is the only issue I have with Top Gear Japan D-pads. Literally, it's the only issue, but it's a bad issue. Well, then why do you use Top Gear Japan D-pads, Zeni? Because I found a fix that I'm going to talk about. All right, so this controller that I just plugged in, this is my backup controller, and it's what we're going to be using today in the cleaning fixing, okay? So it looks the same as my other one, right? But if I stutter left, look at all those up inputs. What the heck? What the heck is up with that, man? It's really bad, isn't it? It's really, really bad. So can you imagine you have a spike suit and you're running around and you do a spin jump to the left and you're just pushing left, but oops. There's an up input. Oops. Rip, dude. Rip. Okay. Funny enough, this doesn't really happen going to the right. So I think it's a combination. Thank you very much for the tier 1 sub. 19 months. I appreciate it. I think it's a combination of how I press the D-pad, how the Top Gear Japan D-pads are built, and probably like I said earlier, different shells are different, so maybe some are worse and some are better. But if you're running into this, I do have a fix. So, we're going to take the controller apart. All right, Phillips screwdriver. I'm going to hide the game now. Goodbye, game. And we are going to do this. Okay. All right. So we're going to take this part. So you take the back shell off. All right. and you just want to put it somewhere safe where the screws are not going to fall out. Now we have the inside of the controller. So we have our L and R buttons. Okay, those are what we want to take off first. Keep in mind, and I did leave it plugged in. If you're worried about it, you can unplug the controller, obviously. I just leave it plugged in because I'm lazy. But you probably should unplug it. Especially, you know what, we are going to unplug it because we're going to be cleaning the board. And if you're cleaning the board, you definitely should. If you're just replacing like the membranes, I don't bother because I'm lazy. But okay. These L and R buttons have these little metal rods that go into them. Okay. So keep that in mind when you are taking them out. Basically, they fit in a little housing on the inside to keep the button from moving too much. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So take off L and R first. Do not lose the metal rods. Put them somewhere safe. Okay. Then you want to take out the membranes for L and R. These are the Top Gear Japan ones. You're probably not going to be able to see it super well. And like I said, my better camera, unfortunately, is not on autofocus, so I can't really like hold it up and be like, look at this. But they're translucent in color, I guess. Translucent isn't really a color, but the OEM ones look like this. Okay, so they're a little different. The top is a little wider, and they're kind of a light blue color. Personally, I've never had too much of an issue with OEM L and R, but lots of people have. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we took off L and R. Now what we're going to do is take the board off. What I do is I take the cord right here. The cord goes into the controller, and then it wraps around a peg and back down, and then it you can see the colored wires going into a socket on the board. Okay. So you want to take the black cord, you want to just remove it from the plastic housing from around the pegs. Okay, like that. That will lift the board up, and you just take it off like that. Okay. And again, put it somewhere for safekeeping. I will show more of the board in just a minute. Okay, and then we have our D-pad, our start and select, and our ABXY buttons. Okay, so we're gonna take the D-pad out, and we're gonna take start and select out, and we're gonna take out ABXY. And then you have either your colored ABXY plastic buttons, or if you're using a Super NES America version, North America, I guess, they will be pink and purple instead of the blue, green, yellow, red colors. They are actually labeled. I'm not going to turn the shell to show you, but where the colors are supposed to go are labeled on the inside of the shell. So it says like lavender goes on top and right. Green is just the right, and blue is just the top, and red is just the left. Anyway, so no worries about remembering what needs to go where, because it is printed on the inside of the controller. Okay. I did not mention this in the parts list at the beginning, but the fix that I have for the D-pad issue that I showed, and just to prevent my colored buttons from falling, I'm going to replace my ABXY there. The fix that I have involves putting tape over part of the shell. Okay. So that sounds really weird, but I'm going to show you. This is my main controller. Okay. See how there is some tape right here in this top left corner? So that tape wraps around the housing on the underside of the shell. And what it does is, I mean, honestly, this sounds really dumb and like it shouldn't work, but we're doing it this way so you can see that it does work. It just shifts the plastic part of the D-pad just enough so that it doesn't press in the bad way on the board and cause your bad up inputs. So, okay. So I use electrical tape. I haven't tried any other kind of tape. I like electrical tape because it's easy to kind of like move around and get in the right spot. And I like that it's black. I mean, there's, other colors, I think, but okay, so we're going to get some electrical tape. Peel it off here. There's another part that I should probably edit out of the YouTube video. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so I use 91% rubbing alcohol, but 70 should be fine as long as you don't like give the board a bath in it. The main thing is making sure that it's all evaporated and that the board is dry before you plug it back in and start using it. Okay, so I have a little piece of electrical tape here. I'm going to cut it even smaller. And then what I'm going to do is put it on the inside of the shell. If I can do this correctly. Okay. And you kind of want it to wrap around the corner as well when you're doing this. Okay. So you can't see it very well because my camera's not super good, but it's sitting right here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around the outside of the controller as well. Okay. And then we're going to do it in the other direction. So that one was going horizontally. Now we're going to do one vertically. Okay. This controller, so I've already fixed this controller in this way before. So I'm kind of cheating here, but this controller I know needs 2 pieces of tape going in each direction, so 4 layers total. Not all controllers will. My main controller just has 1 piece of tape in each direction. So just so that we don't have to take the controller apart again. So there's the first set of tape. I'm going to grab this piece. Oh, that one's pretty small. Okay, so we have the tape on the controller now, on the shell, that is. We're going to put the plastic part of the D-pad back in. We are going to put the membrane back in. We're going to put start and select back in. And before I reassemble the controller, I'm going to talk about the board. Okay. Well, you know what? No. I think this will go better if I just show the stuttering now. You better not make a fool of me, controller. Or it's over between us. Okay. All right. So. So just put stuff back together in the reverse order. So I put the board back in with the cord wrapped around the pegs. And then I put the membranes for L and R back in. And then I put the L and R buttons back on. And now I'm going to put the back of the shell back on. All right. And then, so moment of truth, we're going to stutter left. Doesn't that look better? There's 1, 2. It's like magic. Okay, so that is why I put tape on the corner of these D-pads. Again, it's my only issue with the Top Gear Japan D-pads is that stuttering left gave me a bunch of ups, and that fixed it. So it's kind of jank, but you know, here's the controller. Anyway, okay. Now we're going to take it apart again, and I'm going to show you the board. Anyway, board time. Okay. So we have our board. This is what it looks like. Right side up. Okay. You've got your D-pad over here. You have your start and select right here, and then you have your ABXY buttons right here. And then on the top, you've got your L and R buttons. And these boards are separate. They float loose on top. And that's what I meant by some boards have looser L and R and some boards have tighter L and R. If you don't want them to be loose, what you can do is you can put a little piece of paper or foil or something in between the boards, I should say. Personally, I've found that actually makes them less responsive for Zoden pumping, so I don't do that. But that is an option if you're having an issue with that. So keep that in mind. Okay. So, the focus of this today on this board is, yeah, that's actually a good point, Pleb. Don't use foil. I would just use like paper or plastic or something. No, my cord. Oh well. So on each of these buttons, there's a little white line in the middle. Okay. Not every revision of the board is going to have white lines. Some of them are just different, but there's a line going through the middle of each button. Okay. That line, if it gets dirty, will prevent a button from registering. So that's what you want to focus on cleaning when you're cleaning these. You do not want to press hard when you are cleaning these. Just repetitive, like wiping motion, just a soft, gentle, repetitive wiping motion is enough with the rubbing alcohol to get dirt and grime and whatever off of these boards. If you press too hard, you can ruin the board. I'm not saying that to alarm you. You don't need to be scared. Just be gentle. Okay. So we have our rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, however you say that. We have our Q-tip. So we just put the Q-tip, get it wet. Okay. And then what you do is you just gently wipe on the board, on the white part. Now we're doing down. Now we're doing right. Now we're doing up. You can do it twice if you want. Down looks a little dirty still. I once had a controller. It was my childhood controller. I plugged it in as an adult and it no longer worked. And I was so sad. And it no longer worked because there was dirt on the start button. I opened it up and I cleaned it up, knowing literally nothing about what I was doing. And I was like, wait a second, there's this black stuff all over this white line. What is going on? Anyway, cleaned it up, put it back together, and then it worked. It's great, isn't it? It's great. It's a great thing. You do the top two, and then, by the way, I'm not an expert at like electrical stuff. Oops. So if I'm doing something like terribly wrong and people are like cringing or whatever, I'm sorry. I'm a speedrunner who has just kind of taught myself how to do this very basic maintenance on old controllers. That's it. So, the nice thing about higher percentage alcohol is that it will evaporate faster. But if it's taking longer to evaporate, you can wipe it off with the dry part of the Q-tip. Okay. All right. And then if you want, you can also clean the membranes themselves. They generally don't need it as much. But that is an option. Where did I put... Oh, they're still in the shell. I have an extra one sitting here. So they have these black contacts. Okay. You can clean those if you want. No matter how much you clean them, they're going to wipe off on the Q-tip. So don't overdo it. Like, just do it a little bit to get like a surface layer of dirt off or whatever, and that's all you need to do. I'm not going to do that today, personally. Okay, so once you've cleaned your board, you just put it back together. I already did that once, but we'll do it again quickly here. So we're going to put the board back in first, like so. Okay, and then we take the cord and we wrap it around the pegs, like so. And then we take our membranes and we put them in the shoulder buttons, like so. And then we take our L and R buttons, we put the metal rod back into the housing, like so. And then we take the back shell, and we screw it back together. Okay, one more thing here. So, remember I mentioned 40 watt range, and how he gave me some tips and stuff on this a while ago. One of the tips that he gave me was that for your D-pad, if you're having trouble getting angles to register when you want them to, one thing you can try doing is loosening the screws a little bit. He said, loosen them only up to 1/4 turn at a time. And when he said that, I was like, that sounds weird. And then I tried it, and it actually made stuff like mockballing quite a bit easier for me. So it's worth trying. I do it on this one and this one. Okay. So I do just 1/4 turn to the left after fully tightening. Just do 1/4 turn to the left on both of those screws. And that's it. Okay. Now we're going to plug this back in. I already showed that the tape fixed the stutter issue for the most part. But I'm just going to, gosh dang it. Every time I plug in, it loads state. It's okay. You need the game feed anyway. All right. Yeah, definitely try it, Lynx. Definitely. It fixed a bunch of mocks that I was missing like every time. Okay. So the controller still works. You can still do mock balls. You can stutter left. No up inputs. You can stutter right. No up inputs. No down inputs. It's all good, right? Anyway, that's my controller cleaning / fixing segment of stream / tutorial for YouTube. I will be editing it and putting it on YouTube probably tonight after stream. That's usually how I do stuff, because if I don't do it that way, then I get demotivated and then I forget to do it, and it takes me a million years. So how frequently do I replace my D-pad membrane? That depends. For Top Gear Japan, I would say once every 2 to 3 months. But I'm really particular about how my D-pad feels and acts. I just replaced it yesterday, for example, and I replaced it entirely on a hunch. Like, that's the best way for me to describe it. It felt fine. It was performing fine, but my stutters on Phantoon were getting too long, so I couldn't do 1 rounds, so I replaced it. I don't know if replacing it fixed it yet, because I haven't had an opportunity really to try since then. But I would say for the average player, a Top Gear Japan D-pad should last at least 6 months, probably, maybe longer. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I appreciate you guys watching. I am going to stop recording now, and that will make it easier for me to put it on YouTube. And yeah, thanks.